recommend that. So, without further ado, let me tell you about Warren Hanchey. He's a research director at Quantum Power Technology in Atlanta. He's worked 13 years in area of biological signaling, which is the use of the scalar energy or different things. It's going to be fascinating when he talks more about it, and also used in biological programming as the same time frame. At the same time frame, use longitudinal scalar waves. That's like the big, like that's like the crutch of everything here. Longitudinal scalar waves in producing a capacity of performance greater than one. You didn't realize you're going to do a little geometry, a little algebra here. Greater than one. You remember the greater one sign?
Yeah.
It's a V, right?
I'm still lost.
The alligator's trying to eat that one. No? Warren, welcome to the Good Attention Show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, good to see you in person. You see somebody on Skype, and of course, you look much more handsome in person than you do on Skype.
Thank you.
So, and I think Warren and I had a similar person there who cut her hair. Right? Yeah.
That's correct. I tried to get in to see her actually yesterday, and she was booked up until
yeah,
Monday.
she's top of the line, man.
Yeah, she's great.
So, with that being said, before we get into stuff more questions I have on scalar energy and why that's such a buzzword now and why it has been the suppressed technology for the whatever hundreds of years, whatever when it started coming out. Of course, Tesla playing with it in his later years, as you heard on the video in his later years. So, what have you been up to lately with your scalar energy, not only promotion, but your scalar energy research and how you're getting it out there in the world? What have you been up to?
Well, let's start by talking about what scalar energy really is. If you roll the clock back 20 years and they came up with the term nano, all of a sudden everybody in the world jumped on, we're doing nano this and nano that. And scalar is kind of similar to that. Tesla did not do scalar energy, he did longitudinal scalar energy. And the difference is profound. So with longitudinal scalar waves, scalar is a part of the longitudinal wave, but it's a more focused waveform than scalar in general. So anybody can crank up a scalar machine, quote, quote, and radiate a whole room with scalar energy. But it's very, very weak, unlike a longitudinal scalar that has to have a transmitter and a receiver to make it work. So you literally send a beam out to a receiver, it bundles up, it comes back to the transmitter, and the entire field is very defined and very easy to control. And you can control it to do biological programming, which has been our forte. Recently, I just got back a couple of weeks ago from doing a presentation over in Seoul, Korea, and right behind me, so I was in Seoul for 2 or 3 days, did a presentation to a couple of hundred people over there. Then I went to Singapore and I actually set up a longitudinal scalar wave lab in Singapore that I can monitor from Johns Creek at any time. I can see everything going on in that lab. And we're going to do programming over in Southeast Asia as a redundancy situation for what we're doing here, but also economically, it's easier to program things closer to where they're going to be sold. And the company I'm working with is called Energy Wave, and they are expanding. I actually helped this company get started about 5 years ago, and they called me up a few months ago, and they said, look, we're really on the verge of exploding, and we need to base what we're doing on you. So we'll pay you a bunch of money if you'll come over here and help us grow this business. And so I said, sure. I said, let's do it. So Seoul was the first stop there, and then get the Singapore operation set up. And they are doing wristbands and holograms, which is basically what I set up with them 5 years ago. And now the programming is substantially stronger than it was when we first started this.
So they're taking the ball and running with it under your guidance and oversight, what sounds like since the last 5 years, and now they're really probably to the point where they're ready to start rocking and rolling and they need more of your attention. But before we get into this band, I want to talk how this works and what this is that you gave me. You gave me this here a couple minutes ago. So basically, the difference between scalar energy and longitudinal energy is that that the longitudinal energy is actually more has boundaries to it. It's more controllable.
It's more controllable, and it acts like a carrier wave. So you can modulate information on the carrier wave going back and forth between a transmitter and a receiver. You can't do that with just a scalar signal.
Because scalar is everywhere, and you can't. It's free. It's wild, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's wild, but it's very weak.
It's wild, very weak. Okay, until they condense it or something into.
But they can't condense it.
They can't condense it
unless you convert it to a longitudinal
wave. Okay, and the way they're doing that is through tying that to a specific type of wave.
That's exactly right.
And that wave, what is that wave called again?
It's a longitudinal scalar wave.
So that longitudinal scalar wave is that particular wave that the scalar energy could attach itself to it to move and be controlled.
You can carry information on it. You can carry energy on it. It's exactly what Tesla was doing back in the day. And the expert of the universe right now is Professor Konstantin Meil over in Germany, who happens to be my mentor. And Konstantin went back and went through all of Tesla's patents from, back in the early 1900s, and used modern day electronics to quantify what Tesla was showing in all of his patents. So he created systems that he's got all over Europe. We've got them at major corporations in the US. Microsoft's got them. And he shows people there how to create longitudinal waves on a very weak voltage signal. So everything he does with his systems are millivolts in charge.
Okay. Versus, like, for example, why couldn't they do this, have a longitudinal wave travel on electromagnetic, AC wave or,
Technically, it's surprising you said that, because what we've recently found out is that every alternating current wave that comes through your building also has a scalar wave that's wrapped around the alternating current wave. And I think that is not common knowledge at all.
So, let's stop there, because since there's no one else, I love things that are not common knowledge. And two, it's like the new organ they just discovered. That the way human body has this whole new organ, right?
Right.
So here it is. We have a scalar, or I guess it's a longitudinal scalar wave, right? Wrapped up around our typical AC current wave.
Right.
And have you discovered or thought through what the purpose would be?
No, actually, we've just found that was the case, and now we're kind of trying to look at it and see what can you do with it. What can you do with the knowledge to know it's there, and then how could you use that to do something good with it.
So scalar waves has its own energy, its ultimate energy, and then you have AC or electromagnetic waves that are, like, for example, from point A to point B could be measured.
Right.
Where scalar energy, not longitudinal scalar energy, but scalar energy is just point A.
Exactly.
It's everywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we're now learning to harness it through the longitudinal scalar wave process.
Right.
And now you're just telling me, now we just found out that this longitudinal scalar wave is finding it's wrapped around our typical AC current. Now, is every AC current have this, or is just one of these things you just discovered on some fluke process?
Yeah, we don't know. This is something that I just found out about a week ago. This electrical
You heard it here on the UI Radio Network. Just remember that. Yeah.
This electrical engineer was showing me this, and I said, "Well, I've never seen that," and I'm pretty savvy about this.
Well,
stuff.
how do you measure it? I mean, how do you see it? How do you know that's happening? I mean, what do you use? Microscopes?
You measure it by response. You can measure it by using diodes to know that there's more energy coming back from the receiver than is going out from the transmitter.
It has to be accounted for.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. So with longitudinal scalar waves, you can have a multiplication of energy. That's the reason I'm, as a separate project, working on some power applications using those longitudinal scalar waves.
All right. If we haven't bored you yet to death, hang in there. We'll get to you. So, but we're going to talk about why this is so important and how it's being used. That will affect your personal life big time, all right? So hang in there, but we got to get the technology down to really be able to make the next step. So this is fascinating. And so, and who knows have you extrapolated or thought maybe some of the even I know you don't have much time, a week, a time here, but have you thought about potential, ramifications or positive opportunities or even consequences of having scalar energy wrapped up around, it's like a hot dog with a bun on it or something, I mean, have you thought of any, consequences
Well,
or potentialities?
yeah, the consequences of the longitudinal scalar is a total change in biology and how you treat the body for different conditions. And, that's what we're working on. That's the biological signaling aspect of what we do. It's a reason we can capture information in a hologram, put it on the body, and the body will immediately pick up the information in the hologram and make a biological change.
Well, see, if it's always been there the whole time, and you could just run AC through somebody, and then they could get the benefit of scalar energy, right?
Two different things. Yeah, the AC is new. We don't know what that does. We just know that it's got a scalar component to it, but what that component is actually doing, we don't know.
Right.
It could be good, it could be bad. Not all AC is good.
Yeah, too much of currency of anything can be a little bit harmful to you. Well, anyway, I just find that fascinating. So we're able to harness this, and just so we keep everybody engaged. What are some of the things that you're using in your technology as an inventor, not only in Seoul but also here, that you're using this longitudinal scalar energy process to help humanity here?
Yeah, so we program substrates with it to create a biological reaction. When we did our research over at the University of Alabama, we were actually studying an area called DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. And what we discovered over there when we did our double-blind crossover placebo-controlled studies was that we could actually increase muscle endurance and improve recovery time from nothing but a program hologram put on the lower part of the body or the upper part of the body. So the signal from the hologram created a total biological change to the good for everybody that was in the study.
Because it was stimulating or signaling the actual cell that was involved in that process, right?
Right. We use acupuncture points and meridians to create different effects.
Hold on. You actually admit there's a bioelectrical field in the human body that's not just chemical response in the Western medicine? Are you kidding me?
No question. It's been around for 4,000 years.
Why are we not told this? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, you talk about Europe, and I know you have your book to share a little bit. They're so much more advanced. They have not been hoodwinked to think that we're just a chemical response, but we are also, as a human being, a bioelectrical magnetic human being. That's part of our field. That's part of who we are, right?
That's right. So part of what we're doing with the longitudinal waves is learning to signal the DNA in the human body to make profound changes in medicine.
So your bypass, which is, I find this neat because thoughts do the same thing. Thoughts trigger our DNA, triggers our cells. You have a positive thought versus a negative thought. There's a different effect on fight or flight or creation of brand new DNA never seen before in your body. So you're saying is you could still have some really bad thoughts, but use this type of technology to get the same end response of that cell response or the creation of that new DNA just by bypassing the thought and creating the outcome that you want through this transmission process.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, think about that for a second. I mean, seriously. Is that not just phenomenal, just to think about that for a second?
Professor Mile was actually the chairman of the Second World DNA Congress over in Dalian, China a few years ago, and he wrote a book to go along with that Congress called DNA and Cell Resonance. And in that book, he explains exactly how you use the type programming we do to signal the DNA, and the DNA just becomes an antenna in the body that absorbs and goes into resonance with the signals that we're trying to send to it. I mean, there are 150 doctors over in Europe right now that are using this technology constantly. There are major cancer centers that are using it right now. Outside the U.S., it can't be done here.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Until we take the stranglehold of big pharma and the Defense Department off our backs. So if that's the case, I mean, that's pretty That's pretty phenomenal information that we're able to bypass. But I'm trying to think it may not be such a great thing either, because sometimes technology too far in advance from the human psyche, from their ability to be able to think positively, to be able to embrace love vibration, to raise their own personal frequency up. If technology can kind of bypass that, then you could have some bad thinking people out there, advancing themselves more so than you almost think you want a kind of a natural progression of humanity raising up their frequency or their vibration without have to be dependent on technology. Not that it's going to stop it, not that it's not brilliant. I'm sure it is, but you ever think about some of that? Maybe you going a little too fast.
No, I think what we think about constantly is that we are limiting the drugs and chemical aspect of medicine. That's
Yeah,
our
right.
big push.
Yeah, sure.
So we want to not deal with the drugs and chemicals. I mean, some drugs and chemicals you're going to always have to have, but the vast majority of just
Oh, it's overkill. Yeah.
putting the effect of the drugs in the body and really accomplishing nothing is something that we've got to get away from at some stage.
Well, it seems like it's the shotgun approach versus the rifle approach. Because this scalar energy is more of you're focusing, fine tuning, precision wise,
Right.
whereas you're taking an antibiotic, you're just napalming all your good and bad bacteria. It just seems the chemical response is so old and outdated. That big
Right.
pharma is. And yet you think they would be the first ones embracing, well, I guess you don't want to heal people, then you don't want to heal people, right? But so you're seeing people heal themselves through this technology of use of this longitudinal scalar energy used and piggybacking with the actual, I guess, the machine, the technology that you create. So you have to send a signal. Signal needs to originate from somewhere, and it's not the human thought. So it comes from a machine, I assume, or something like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, explain this to people so we know.
So the silica material in the wristband can be programmed. It'll hold a memory just like the hologram. So underneath the cover here, there's a hologram on the inside
Yeah.
that you can see here.
Right.
So that hologram holds a tremendous amount of information.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once we put it on the body, it takes a position with the temperature in the room and the temperature of the human body being two different temperatures. Anytime you have a conductive material on either side of two temperatures, it creates an energy field. So we use that passive energy field over an acupuncture point, and bam, the body activates.
Because of the meridians in that area of the body.
Right.
And it actually it stimulates that flow of energy, or it communicates with the flow, or it becomes part of it, I guess, and then or unplugs or unclogs whatever perhaps blockages there were.
Right. Right.
I mean, and the sad part about it, and I say sad because people from Missouri don't appreciate this because you can't see it. It's all done invisibly.
Right.
And so or I don't say sad part. That's probably the unfortunate part, or not even unfortunate, but that's going to come down to only thing you really be able to judge by is the outcome.
Right, right. And you said an interesting thing about the electronics of the body
I
earlier.
was going to say Missouri, people from Missouri, but go ahead anyway.
So we all know that minus 85 millivolts is about the normal charge, and the cell potential in the human body is about 85 millivolts, minus 85 millivolts.
Right.
So voltage goes down, you get sick. Voltage goes up, generally not a whole lot is going to happen. But what we're working on now is how can we prop up the millivolt charge of the human body? Let's say somebody has a weight issue going on. Well, that weight issue is dragging down the millivolt charge of the body. And if we can drive the millivolt charge back up, it's going to burn fat, and all of a sudden the weight issue is going to start coming under control. And it can go into a lot of different areas from there.
Oh, it seems unlimited. I mean, you could take this to. I mean, you don't have enough people to work on these different potentialities of helping and curing and dealing not just dealing with symptoms, managing symptoms, but actually truly healing.
Right, right. And if you take where I was 10 years ago, I've got a lot of medical doctor friends, and they would just laugh at me with the things that I'm doing. And now it seems like every month I've got more and more medical doctors that are contacting me wanting to be involved with what we're doing.
Well, that's the best news that you could possibly hear because they're waking up to this.
They are.
Excuse me. And the scalar energy aspect of it is because it's been suppressed, and maybe we can spend a minute on that real quick here. I assume the reason why it's been suppressed since Tesla is because of the curing powers and healing powers of its potentiality.
But I think more so that people just don't understand what he really was doing. And they don't understand what he detected as being a longitudinal scalar wave. That stinging effect that he was finding in his lab that he couldn't explain is the scalar waves.
They said, like even on the video, they said that he kind of discovered this later on in life, this last part of it, but so he never got to the longitudinal part. You think he just got to the general understanding?
I think what he was feeling was the longitudinal part that all of a sudden, boom, it was there and it had never been there before. And it gets created as a byproduct of resonance. So the cool thing is what Professor Mile has done after 20 years of research on this, he's written a dozen books. All of a sudden now there's a lot of quantifiable information out there that anybody can go and study and really understand the whole area much better than they ever could before.
You know, like I had this lady on, I was telling you earlier, who said she channeled. The one thing I thought was really interesting was she said, and tell me if there's any validity to this, she said basically, or, you know, via Tesla's, you know, communication, supposedly, is that she said that the scalar energy, to truly activate its potentiality, you have to have it's a kind of a built-in frequency trigger here, that you have to have a higher vibration of love, of positive energy, to activate its more powerful aspects of the scalar energy. Does that make any sense to a scientist's mind like you?
None.
Well, I was ashamed.
We appreciate your honesty. Really.
All right. But how would you know if it doesn't, though? How do you know that, you know, there's more to the scalar energy than just this longitudinal scalar energy that we figured out right now? How do you know that there's a lot more to it? I mean,
well, we know intention can make huge changes. I mean, I can tell you some remarkable things that I've seen in the intention area. So, for instance, this is a great story. So I'm in a conference out in San Francisco a number of years ago, and I've got a machine there that I can hook somebody up to, and I can measure their body, different sections of their body. And I had this little old lady that must have been 85 years old hooked up to this machine, and I'm getting a certain energy pattern. And then all of a sudden, bam, her pattern goes off the chart. And the reason it went off the chart was her husband came in the other side of this room that was gigantic. And her body picked up the fact that her husband's body was coming into that room, and she was looking in the opposite direction. Okay. So, you know, the reason you don't like somebody sometime, it's the intention.
It's that energy field around us.
Exactly.
So, okay, so you'll admit that intention, which is it's a property of thought, right? A purposeful thought, for whatever you want to define it.
Mm-hmm.
Attention does activate scalar energy on whatever level, or is intention and thought scalar energy? Is it actually scalar energy, or it's an initiative of scalar energy?
Well,
activation of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you're not sure, potentially an intention, say more higher intention or vibrational intention or loving intention, potentially could activate a different aspect of scalar energy.
It could.
It could.
It could.
Okay,
And I totally believe in intention.
Okay.
And I've seen it happen over and over.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt. I myself, I've seen that over, and and I connect the dots where thought first, reality second.
Right.
And thanks, Matrix. So with that being said, there may be something to what she was saying, but there definitely needs to be a lot more research to it. If the potentiality of intention and vibration, because love versus fear have different frequencies.
Right.
And they affect not only our DNA differently and our cellular structure differently, which we know, but we also know, thanks to people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, our intention and thoughts affect outside of our bodies. As you noticed when the two people came in the room,
right,
their intention was affecting that's the scalar energy movement. Or
Mm-hmm.
Would you say like movement, or would you say like power?
I think connection. I think both of them became connected as soon as he came into the room.
Okay.
So she went into resonance with him because
Right.
they've been married for 50, 60 years,
Yeah.
and they were just in sync.
Right. Sure. You start looking like each other, don't you know?
Yeah, and there's something else. I don't want to poo-poo the the people that come up with
Sure.
having whatever,
Yeah.
but there's no question in my mind that there are downloads that people get, I think, consistently when they're in a heavy research mode. I mean, I go to sleep some nights and I wake up the next morning and I've got ideas that I've never had in my life, and my wife will say, where did that come from? And I'll say, I have no clue. It just came to me during my sleep.
So, well, Tesla, it was been known to download. That's how,
Right.
to point where I think where it's very painful for him.
Yeah, and I think every major researcher, to a certain extent, is getting downloads
Sure.
from wherever.
Well, listen, and I'll even go past researchers. I'll just say people who are realizing that we're much more than our five senses, and we are either extended five senses or extended five senses, or even a higher sense, sixth sense, whatever it may be. That once you realize there's much more to vibration and frequency other than just what we learned in science. That there's actually kind of a dimensional response to this. And that's where perhaps the scalar energy has a different face to it, or a different value to it, or maybe we're going to learn more about. But do you believe scalar energy is not only here throughout everything, is everywhere? Like somebody would say, well, where's scalar energy? Is it here, or is it over here? Right? Where is it? Is it a time and space to it, or is it part of the matrix what we're living in that is made up of it?
I think it's part of everything that we're living in. It's like
It's like the ocean.
like the ocean, like a neutrino field. So the Earth is bombarded by neutrinos by the gazillions all the time,
Right.
and we're just in that field.
Right, the scalar field. So, so you have this technology, and you guys are healing people, and you're pretty excited about not only these, because this is actually. So, what's happening right now to me with this? You could be happening right now to
So
me.
most of that is lowering the inflammation in your body and increasing your energy flow to a certain extent.
Right,
Those are meant for pain relief, more than you think.
right, and also, you talk about the one of the biggest things that's under attack right now is our immune system. Our lymphatic system, right?
Yeah, everybody is inflamed. Everybody needs help with inflammation. Our food supply is tainted, so therefore everybody's eating bad stuff.
Our air,
Yeah, the air is tainted.
our
Yeah,
water.
right.
I mean, honestly, do you
What's
feel?
not tainted?
Thank you, Monsanto glyphosate. It is phenomenal, and what's going on. And I don't know, Dr. Zach Brown, he talks about Cancer Alley, which is all these cities around the Mississippi River has, I can't remember, like 10 times more susceptible to cancer than anywhere else in the United States. And they're finding out because of the fields of the glyphosate that they farm in, and not only it's in the soil, but also, since it's all there, it's stirred up, it's in the air and gets into the water system in the Mississippi River.
Right.
And so you have this increase of that, and you could follow it yourself. I mean, just because you don't see it on Fox News doesn't mean it's not real, right, or CNN. So, but it's part of this detoxing. Why this is so important, what you're discussing with scalar energy is so important, is that we're all inflamed because of this low-grade infection coming from these outside toxins that are in our body, that are coming into our body from our environmental status. So this kind of hogwash of everything's cancer and MS and whatever it may be is all DNA genetically passed on from father to the son or mother to daughter, whatever it may be. You would challenge that, wouldn't you?
I would.
Yeah, and why? And why?
Well, I just would. I think another thing that we're all dealing with right now in this point in time is the solar flares that are bombarding the Earth. I mean, I never get sick ever. And over the last couple of weeks, I've been struggling. My wife's been struggling. And it's because we're under such intense bombardment, I think, from plasma waves coming from the sun.
And so, what's in the plasma waves? How is it worse than glyphosate or
Well,
the aluminum metals?
Yeah, no, it's not worse. It's not worse than that. But I think it's just an overload energetically to what the human body can stand.
So it's almost like this increase from a 2.5G to a 5G EMFs.
Pretty much.
So now you're just adding on to this increase.
Right.
So maybe with solar flares, we're probably at a 10G,
Yeah,
or periodically, or whatever.
I mean, it's extreme right now. People are getting sick all over the place.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so walk us through that, because this is fascinating. Because so this increase in EMFs or increase in solar energy, which is, I guess, EMFs. I assume solar energy is different, plasma is different.
Yeah, it's
but
plasma
this
is
increase in extra energy, let's
Right.
just call it, is messing with our energetic fields, not only around us, which we have this kind of apple-shaped energetic field around us, but also this energetic field within us, in our cells and everything else, right? So it messes up by just pattern interference.
So I'm saying it's draining the body and then making the body more susceptible to viruses and different problems.
It's compromising our immune system once
Exactly.
again. Yeah. It all comes down to the immune system. All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We're here with Warren Hanchey. He's a research inventor. He's just a brilliant man when it comes to scalar energy, and of course, longitudinal scalar energy, just to be accurate. And we're going to get more into some of the questions I have that I've experienced with some people talking about it, and what he thinks if it's valid or not valid, and where he thinks scalar energy will be used in the future. Maybe something a little bit bigger than even what we're doing now with the technology that we have and that he's working on. We'll be right back with Warren Hanchey. And Warren, what's the quickest way they can reach you? What's the best way people to reach you?
Just Warren at Hanchey.com.
WarrenHanchey.com. All right.
Warren at Hanchey.com.
Warren at Hanchey.com. All right. We are back with Warren Hanchey, and he is an inventor, researcher. I would say expert in scalar energy, whatever you feel comfortable, but I would say that without a doubt in my mind. But before, I wanted to go on a couple of things, how we could utilize scalar energy for more healing process. But you were just talking on break a little bit about this thing right here. Tell me a little about that, what you have there.
Right. So when I met Professor Mile back in 2007, I really embraced his longitudinal waves. We were using a radionics technique at the time to create these biological changes, and I switched over. I embraced his board, which would look something like this at that time. And over the course of working with him 2 or 3 years, I began to develop larger and larger and larger boards. And because what I was trying to do is create more and more and more power and not just stay in a millivolt category. And we also were interested in programming substrates and not necessarily programming the human body directly.
All right, okay, we're losing some people here. So explain what a board is, and like this is like you could condense it down to a very microchip too. This is a much bigger version of it, or something.
Well, yeah, this is all vortex physics. So everything, if we're going to pull information out of a certain molecule, let's say we're going to extract the information out of calcium,
Okay.
we've got to spin it a certain way to pull that information out. And the way you do that is with pancake coils.
Okay.
So we've developed different styles of pancake coils to be able to extract the information, number one, and then to deposit that information back into the wristbands, the holograms, whatever we want to program. Water would be another choice. So anything that'll hold the information that we're extracting, then we use these boards to do that.
So like centrifugal speed or gravity will actually pull it out.
Like a black hole in space.
Yeah.
You go
yeah.
past the event horizon, and then it's going to the middle. You can't stop it.
And so, and you're pulling, and is this stuff coming out of the DNA of these things?
It's coming out of the electronics of the molecule.
It's like you're pulling the electrons outside of you're taking out the electrons outside the molecule that makes the molecule shape, right?
Exactly.
And then it collapses, the protons and neutrons, and what happens?
Well, we're actually looking at boards like this to see if we can't replicate heavy hydrogen, as long as you know the neutron and the proton and how the electron, how they spin and how they interreact.
Right.
We think we're going to be able to take boards like this and create those interreactions in a much less expensive way than has ever been done before.
Okay, and pragmatically could be used for what? By doing this process, how could
Power applications, all sorts of applications. Anything that you can do with a molecule, then you could do it.
Fusion, we're talking
Yeah,
here.
you could do fusion, you could do heavy hydrogen, you could do a lot of different things.
In a much safer matter, right?
Totally safe, yeah.
Because it's scalar.
Yeah, you don't need the heat, you don't need all the power involved.
Right. So no nuclear wars we have to worry about in this sense. It's extracted in a safe, harmless manner.
Right.
And so, well, that's just fascinating.
Yeah,
actually.
we've got physics. We've got good hard physics behind a lot of this.
Yeah.
And one of the latest books that Professor Mile has done
let me see
is
that.
called The Scalar Wave Wars.
Okay, what is this? What language is this in? Spanish?
That's in Spanish. Yeah, I got him to send me a Spanish version because I'm translating it from Spanish over to English
So
right now
so he doesn't have an English version of this,
on purpose.
and because he didn't want to be shut down.
There's some very damning things in here in regard to the U.S. government that's in his book. So he brought it out in German, he brought it out in French, he brought it out in several different
Yeah,
languages,
yeah.
but not us.
Yeah, yeah. They only let you get so big before they start cloning you, or making you dress up, or disappear you. So that's fascinating how that he had to do it in other languages because he didn't want to say. So, are you?
Well, he's drawing some contrast between the Soviet Union and the U.S. So the Soviets embraced Tesla's technology to a huge degree back years and years and years ago. So they've developed things that we don't even have over here yet. And there's a huge difference in technology.
There's a big gap. I mean, even a gap between overseas versus here. Not to mention like our secret space program, which we learn from like people like Billy Carson. They're 300 years more advanced than we are, like in mainstream here in the world here. But I mean, if that's to be true, but it's amazing how we're just not allowed. We're in this like funnel, this void right now. We're not allowed in, but yet it's coming out. You're converting this, and so what are we going to learn from when you put this to English and we read the book? What are we going to learn that we didn't know?
Scary stuff.
You see, is humanity ready for this though? I mean, come on.
Well, they're reading it. They're reading it over in Europe right now, all over the place, and probably down in South America too, obviously. And so he has references to the Bermuda Triangle, what we've always thought was the Bermuda Triangle deal, not necessarily based on research that he's got.
Well, it's a triangular, probably electrical field, right? That's doing something, but is it more scalar, you say, in nature?
Way more scalar.
Whoa.
Yeah, way more
wow.
scalar.
See,
Scalar walls, abilities to literally pull the air out from under an airplane and have it drop into the ocean, pull the ocean out from under a ship and have it go down.
Wow.
And the Soviets know how to do a lot of this.
No wonder we hate the Soviets so much, or at least the media does, I love the Soviets. Wow, this is just fascinating. And see, once again, is Manny ready for that? I don't know. But I mean, it's fascinating to hear about it and to learn. And, scalar energy in the wrong hands. I hope Francesca is correct that, you really can't tap into the ultimate essence of scalar energy until, you have a love vibration, spirit of well-being and mindset. But, if that's the case, thank you. But if not, then why? We're up for a ride here.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting because after I finished speaking in Seoul and got back to the U.S., I got a note from Constantine. He says, I'm on the way to Seoul to do a presentation. I mean, literally 2 weeks after I was there, he was over there. And the part about that's interesting is that South Korea is into technology at an unbelievable pace. They are embracing anything they can get their hands on. Samsung's there, what they're doing with phones. So they are embracing it. A lot of Southeast Asia's embracing it. And we're going to really get behind the 8 ball if we don't start opening ourselves up to new things that are not in the physics books now.
Well, you're going to find people going to these other countries, if they're letting us, though, because it's like a watering down it's a void of information. And when you have a cabal on top of information, you can't actually, get real truthful information, at least not here in the States. Then there's going to be a sucking sound. People are going to want to go where the information is.
Right.
Truth always finds its way, right?
That's right.
So back to the some of the scalar potentialities here, which is fascinating. Like I was talking to this gentleman, and he swore that he has technology that he's built that actually can, through scalar energy, can eliminate viruses. Now he didn't get into longitudinal scalar energy. Maybe he would have, but it was more as he created this tower that actually he pairs up a picture of a person. And he has pictures of viruses, like they do muscle testing. In a lot of these integrative doctors, they'll get the different viruses or the different, and they'll muscle test, or they'll see where the kind of the electrical field they're picking up where the person needs, right?
Right.
That I think has a lot of science and validity to it. But he says he's doing that too, where he could match a virus, and not cancer, just viruses at this point, and he could eliminate the virus remotely to people by getting a picture of the person, matching it to that, put it in this tower, matching the picture and the virus to each other, and through scalar energy, of course, it's is everywhere. It's it just recognizes it and it eliminates or breaks up the molecular structure of this virus. I mean, I'm talking about HIV. I'm talking about every type of virus you could think of. So. And he's supposed to get back with me to verify a lot of the actual technology behind this. But I mean, if scalar energy could do these things that you're saying in this book, why couldn't it do something like this?
Well, radionics has made claims like that for the last 30 years.
Okay.
So that's not new at all.
Radionics is give me and that's assume that's a field or
Yeah, it's a
industry.
It creates a scalar field. A radionics machine creates a scalar field, a dispersed scalar field.
Okay.
So that's kind of what he's talking about. And, non-locality is becoming more and more real every year, it seems like. Whereas you can do something here and affect somebody over in Europe or wherever. A lot of research. There's a lady over in McTaggart, a lady in England. I've read like 5 books that she's written.
Lynn McTaggart.
Yeah, fantastic. She's done
Power of Intention. Yeah.
Super research in that area.
Yeah, she was at Conscious Life Expo. We were having a call to her to get on the show, but she is, she's doing a lot of research on that. Where this United Intentions is really if there's explanation behind uniting intentions, that electromagnetic or scalar energy response of that immediate healing is there's more power when 2 more people come together in prayer, right? 2 more people come together in united intention. It is, I guess, utilizing the scalar energy from point A to point A, where we're at point A, if everything's point A.
Right.
So there's not a typical AC or electromagnetic response from point A to point B. It's just instantaneous.
Right.
So if that is true, these things could be true. But how do you really verify that? I guess if you don't have the virus anymore, right?
I mean, the power of prayer is a really big deal. I mean, you can affect a lot of people.
But isn't that the ultimate technology, is our thoughts? Because if the power of prayer and intention, which you don't need to build something, you don't have to build a machine, you don't have to, like if you could fine tune your thoughts to heal yourself like you do with the technology and the longitudinal scalar waves, why wouldn't you just kind of focus and fine tune your thought process to do the same thing? It's much more efficient and it's free. It doesn't cost anything.
There's a disciple of Tesla's I read some information on several years ago, and he actually designed what looked like a spaceship. And when you sat into the spaceship, there were no instruments. You sat in there, and then he thought about where he wanted that ship to be. So it would move hundreds of miles away. The people that were in the ship would move hundreds of miles away and be there with nothing but the thought that he was.
That was Tesla.
That was a disciple of his.
Disciple. No kidding.
Yeah.
And I guess you would prove that by having a video camera, because you all of a sudden, hundreds of miles away, this ship disappears.
Right, and then the people would have different contents in their pockets that they didn't have when they started because they'd moved. I mean, this guy did public speaking there for a while, and then he just disappeared.
Ooh, I wonder what happened there.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So no, that's pretty fascinating. I mean, if having that ability through power of intent, and I can see why governments and people of power, insidious that it may be, doesn't want people to understand the scale of energy, this power of intent, because you're talking about, game over. You could do whatever you really want to do, right?
Yeah, there's a nefarious side to all the scalar.
Sure. And that's why again, I'm hoping that certain aspects of scalar energy you can't tap into unless you're in the right state of being, or the healthy state of being. But so what's next for you with the technology? I mean, let's take a little break and let's get back. Let's talk to Warren about what's next on the next on your list of things that you want to develop, because you're really going any which way direction you want. I mean, this is pretty phenomenal just alone. But you want to stay with healing, or are you going to want to start, moving water on these ships and having these ships sink down at the bottom of the ocean? Wait, how far do you want to go, Warren? I want to know. We'll be right back. Warren Hanchey. You can reach him at warren@hanchey.com. Check him out. All right, we are back with Warren Hanchey, researcher, inventor, man with the plan here. So before we get into more of your technology with scalar energy, I just want to mention the whole leaf CBD oil. You and your son are in business of producing and distributing CBD oil.
That's true. This is Troy's business, and It's really growing now. He's actually a consultant for the
Another hot
National
topic.
Hemp Association. Now he's one of the top extractors in the country for taking hemp and pulling the CBD oils out. And so we're bottling. I've been just helping him on the side with his sales. I've got a lot of doctor friends that are carrying it in their offices now. And it's a phenomenal product. The CBD oil works really good for pain relief and a lot of different things.
Yeah, organic, non-GMO, vegan, pure CBD oil. I mean, it's as pure as they can get. So, there you go. So it seems like there's this common theme here, Warren. You know, healing, CBD oil, healing with the technology. So, apparently, you chosen as Darth Vader would say, the light side, right? Do you ever? I mean, do you? Because it's almost when you get this access to this type of power and understanding, you know, just the intellect alone. Let's just take our heart out of this section here. Just intellect alone, understanding this type of power behind scalar energy, can be awfully seductive.
It can be. And when you take Troy's CBD oil here, what we've been doing is, since we're
It mellows you out, so you don't want to hurt anybody.
well, since we're an expert on the biological signaling side of things,
Yeah.
we can take his CBD oil and then we can imprint it with turmeric and various other substances that are all anti-inflammatory. So when you take the CBD oil, not only are you getting the CBD, but you're getting a plethora of another dozen items in there that can be very positive for the biology of the body.
Wow. Wow. See, you are a healer. And have you always noticed you were a healer? I mean, you seem to really put your mind at just, is it a truth seeker slash heal? You think to be a truth seeker, you think you kind of being a healer, being somebody who wants to fix and help is kind of comes with the territory of being a truth seeker?
Pretty much. I
Right.
think so, pretty much, and heavily in the last 15 years.
Right. So, okay, what's our future here? Tell us what our future is.
So our future is we're working with different electronic devices. Here's one that I'm working with a medical doctor on developing now. This has a series of 7 magnets in there with a program that can be changed anytime to treat different abnormalities in the body. And what we've recently found is that if we put our hologram over each of the 7 magnets, all of a sudden the way the system works is magnified dramatically. So the magnetic field projects through the hologram into the body, and all of a sudden the body reacts even stronger to it. So there's 2 or 3 different devices that we're working on with that. We are blending in plasma technology in with my longitudinal scalar wave technology now. So we are marrying both up, and we're creating an even better result than just scalar alone, longitudinal scalar alone. So just working on different ways to make things better and better and better.
Huh. Well, that's fascinating, and it's using technology, holographic technology, and healing. It's almost amazing to me, and you know, you could even go back to the old Star Trek days. They were using this type of healing too. I think even, you know, Dr. McCoy was talking about some of this. I don't know if he mentioned scalar energy, but I don't think he was allowed to back then. That would have been a no-no, you know.
Yeah, I've actually got another medical doctor that we're using programming lasers for him that create a purple laser beam, and that laser beam can be used to stir any liquid and make the liquid more liquid, make it go into your body easier. He uses it for food. He uses it for a lot of energetics, and we can actually program the laser diode with our system and all of a sudden get tremendous results out of these lasers.
So hold on. So you're saying this purple laser versus, like, say, a red laser, right?
Yeah. You have to use the right
Frequency, I would assume.
You have to use the right frequency. It's about 800 nanometers. So here would be an example here.
Okay.
You can see what the beam looks
Oh,
like.
yeah,
You know, it's a
sure,
blue
sure.
beam.
You could put it on body.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. And that
So
again.
just literally stir it around in your water, and boom, the water starts tasting different instantly. He uses it on swimming pools, and he'll just literally beam the swimming pool. Somebody will jump in the swimming pool and come out just on fire.
Fire. Well, no kidding. And you almost probably don't need chlorine anymore, huh? You could just use
Well,
your own.
I think eventually you could get rid of chlorine in a couple of different ways.
Wow, this is fascinating. So when's your book coming out? When's your book coming out?
I don't want to write a book.
Why not, man? You need to.
You're about as far out as I get. We do have another trip back over to Singapore, and oh my gosh, Singapore is the most amazing country I've ever seen.
Right.
But the government's helping us over there. We've got the universities are helping us over there. So, these other countries are embracing this kind of wild technology that hadn't been around before, and I'm looking forward to going back over in June, and we should have about 2,000 for the next presentation over there, and that's exciting.
Well, wonderful work. I mean, we gotta wrap it up here, but I just say wonderful work, Warren. I'm gonna have you back more often since now we're only 30 minutes away, which is great. So, again, you want to reach Warren Hanchey, you can reach him at warren@hanchey.com. He's an inventor, researcher, CBD oil provider, and he's coming up with things that are all about the light. He's embraced the light, and we have him on the Obi-Wan Kenobi side, and we want to keep him on that side. So and he can keep track of all the other Dark Vaders out there if we need to. Anyway, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.
I loved it.
All
Let's
right.
do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.